Well, we're just going to wait for people to join on LinkedIn Live. And LinkedIn Live is typically about a minute slower than our go live. So we're going to just play the timer, the countdown timer, and then we'll officially go live. Okay? All right. Welcome, everybody, to our connectivity and communication kickoff event here on LinkedIn Live. We are joined today by Martin Provencher, Greg Sandblom, and Charles Niabese. And basically, happy International Women's Day to all the women all over the world. And to the two most important women in my life, I guess, would be my grandmother and my mother, because I wouldn't be here. So thank you for making BDT happen. That's very, very important. And just a quick introduction to the Beyond Digital Transformation Conference, which started in 2018. BDT is a platform for results-driven mining professionals who want to deploy systems that deliver measurable impacts for their mining operations. Each stream brings together three unique perspectives. So Greg is here representing the mine operations stream. Let's put Greg on the screen there. So Greg's here from Glencore, Sudbury, INO, representing the mine operations perspective. And Greg, do you want to do a brief introduction to yourself and tell us what your unique perspective brings to the table today?
Sure. Thanks, Neha, and thanks to you and your team for allowing me to be the co-chair or one of the co-chairs for BDT 2022 and to be on this panel. So personally, I began my career in Glencore 25 years ago, so it's been a while now. Began as a software developer at our corporate office in Toronto, and moved back to Sudbury along the way, and to my present position, which is Superintendent of Innovation and Technology. So in 2018, we began our journey to build the mine of the future at our Onaping Depth project in the west end of the Sudbury Basin. The challenge with mining at depth is that it's deep. It's a long way to the work face. There's challenges with transportation, with ground control, and so on. And communication and connectivity is key to all of the technology we're putting in at depth, whether that be deploying battery electric vehicles, running those vehicles remotely from surface, and also to be able to keep the miners away from the hazardous locations at the face of the mine. So it's a passion within the innovation team to get that connectivity to the face and connectivity outside of the mines and be able to work remotely rather than working in isolation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. So next we have Charles Niabese. Charles is representing the mining ecosystem, and if you are in mining and on LinkedIn, you must know Charles because he's always in the know about all things mining that are going on. So Charles, tell us about the unique perspective that you're bringing to the table today.
Excellent, thank you for that. Yeah, look, you guys, I'm right here in Tikmashek, Nishnabek territory, and happy International Women's Women's Month. And I just want to say that today is actually the day one openings up for nominating top 100 women in mining. So if you know a woman in mining, you'll nominate, go on my LinkedIn, there's a link there, you can actually nominate somebody. I said too many women to nominate, so I'll nominate a couple for sure. Again, my job is Vice President, Business Development and Commercialization with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. And look, we're all about the ecosystem, okay? We're all about the ecosystem for mine operators, SMEs, academic institutions, government, research organizations, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, different mining industry associations. So we really all about sort of trying to build the capacity of that whole ecosystem to make sure that it's working together so that we can all sort of reach that goal that we all want, which is to to bring forth a mind of the future. So the perspectives I'm bringing forward are really the voices of the ecosystem. From what they tell me, what I hear, what I learn on doing my media searches, what I learn from conferences. So I'm really excited to be on this call because I think, the whole idea of connectivity and communications is really where the future is at. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, and we'll talk more as we open things up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Charles. Appreciate that introduction. And next, we have Martin Provencher. So Martin is representing some deep global expertise in connectivity and communication. And Martin works with Aviva, and he's going to do a brief introduction of himself. So go ahead, Martin.
Well, thanks, Neha, and thanks for having me here. Yeah, my role, actually, I'm global industry principal. So for mining, I'm working with mining companies from all around the world. My background, a little briefly, I mean, I've studied IT, artificial intelligence, almost 30 years ago now. Of course, back then it was early stages. I then worked as an IT automation manager, worked as a production director also for the largest aluminum smelter in the Americas. So I've been in charge of operations and maintenance back then. I've also worked with IBM. I went back to technology after that. I wanted to work with technology to help organizations improve their efficiency. So I went to work with IBM as their mining and metals leader in Quebec, in Canada. Worked with the engineering company after that, and now working with Aviva as the global industry principal for the mining industry again. I'm also vice chair of the Maintenance, Engineering and Reliability Society of the Canadian Institute of Mining. So I'm happy to be here, and what I'll try to bring is as much as possible. I mean, what is it that mining companies are doing with technology? I mean, from a remote perspective, remote operations perspective, but also from a general perspective. I mean, from a digital transformation perspective, what is it that companies that are succeeding? What is it that they're doing in a nice way? So happy to be here. Thanks again, Nia.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin. Appreciate that. So everyone here at the table is providing something unique to the table. And Martin talked about digital transformation, and I have a bit of a video here today from Aviva when we talk about digital transformation in mining and what that means to us. So I'm just going to play a short video from Aviva right now, and we go from there.
The new digital
So I just got a note from Milan. He's watching and he says he cannot hear or see anything. So I'm trying to understand why that is, because we have the video loaded right in. I do see what. Oh, it's a lag in the video. So I'm just gonna. We just had some feedback and technical difficulties from LinkedIn Live. Sorry about that, guys. There, I think the video is. So I'm gonna turn that off. And it'll be about 17 seconds. So maybe playing video during our restreams is probably not the best option. So we'll do is we'll record the video in the actual live event. But now I see that we're all on the screen at the same time. So I just noticed the chat coming through from. Do you guys see the chat that's coming through over there? So what can go wrong will go wrong. So very, very sorry about that. Let's continue on with the Q&A. But before I get into the Q&A, some quick little announcements. We do have our BDT in-person kickoff event happening March 22nd. With the COVID restrictions lifted, we actually have extra tickets, and we are going to be sending an email out today to the people who've attended BDT before in any capacity, to give them an option of purchasing some discounted tickets before we open up ticket purchases on March 11th. So we only have about 50 odd tickets available to sell, and so we're trying to offer it to people who've supported BDT in the past, who currently support BDT, of course, after our sponsor tickets are taken and our speaker tickets are taken. And then April 18th, Milan Hurst and Martin Provencher will be guests of Greg Sandblom, who's going to be hosting a panel on how to access operations data in remote first mining. And then August 22nd and December 2nd are our next two in-person events. So that being said, I'm going to ask our first question, and our first question is to everybody. And the question is, what is, from your perspective, what are the challenges and opportunities as they relate to connectivity and communication for remote first mine sites? So who wants to take that away?
I can start. You can hear me, Neha?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So from my perspective, the biggest challenge for what we're facing is that underground connectivity, the underground wireless. In Sudbury operations that are on a big depth mine, we're moving towards partnering with Ambra to deliver underground private LTE to overcome the challenges of getting that wireless connectivity to the face of the mine. And really, for remote operations to work, the information needs to travel from where the work is located to the various levels of the mine, and whether that's remote, whether that's a CCR that's distributed, or whether that's even a supervisor or a miner working at the face of the mine. Everybody needs to be connected, so that underground wireless is essential to have to work. So that's, for us, it's one of the bigger challenges that I think a lot of underground mining companies are feeling right now.
Awesome. Thanks for that perspective from the operations, Greg. Martin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as Greg was saying, I mean, of course, I mean, the network connectivity is a big thing. Now, although, I mean, we see more and more companies that are leveraging all those new technologies. I mean, Wi-Fi, satellite communication, cell network, LTE, 4G, 5G, mesh networking is also very popular. So from a networking perspective, I think the technology is there. It's just a matter of having it installed now. And from an opportunity perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunities available. I mean, for example, I mean, Baffinland Iron Mines here in Canada, I mean, they've used the leveraged satellite communication to be able to connect with their whole trucks. Of course, it's an open pit mine, so they were able to connect with their whole trucks and get the data from their trucks to improve efficiency. I mean, a lot of companies like Boliden, for example, in Sweden that I worked with quite heavily. I mean, they've implemented a 5G network for their their autonomous operations or remote control features of their drill rigs. So this is a great improvement. Kirkland Lake Gold, also in Canada, they've implemented a 5G network. So from a technology standpoint, I think the technology is there. Again, from an opportunity perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunities. Remote operation centers is a big thing. ArcelorMittal, for example, I mean, they've implemented a remote operation center more than 1,000 kilometers away from the mine site. So, of course, having people on site is a challenge, but having people in cities is more easy. So now they're operating the mine remotely, and they're even monitoring the road condition. For example, they're getting the data out of their trucks at the mine site to bring that to their remote operation center, and they're analyzing that data. And of course, they're able to see that there's a road that needs maintenance activities. So this is a great example from ArcelorMittal. So I think
Awesome.
from an opportunity standpoint, there's a lot of opportunities that are available. Of course, it's just a matter of having the right technology implemented in place.
Absolutely. And the link that I put on the screen, is that the case study from ArcelorMittal?
Yep, that's it. Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So if you guys are interested, take a peek at that case study that's loaded on the screen. So Charles, tell me from an ecosystem perspective, what are your thoughts on the challenges and opportunities? Oh, you're on mute, or we can't hear you right now.
I guess no one here can.
Oh, there.
No one can
There.
lip read. No one can lip read as well as I can. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So be careful what you say around me, because I may just lip read from a distance. There you go. So from my perspective, I think definitely it's the SME perspective that I want to take, and it's the ability of trust that the technologies that are being presented by the SMEs would actually do exactly what it promises to do. And then the other piece is trusting the information. There's a big opportunity, there's a challenge there in making sure that the information is trusted as information is being produced. The other area too that I think is a big challenge is that there already is these moats of created by existing companies that already have sort of ingrained themselves into an operation. And now when you're trying to bring in a new technology into an existing system where there's already some incumbent technologies in place, they can be a big challenge for the SMEs. Now looking at the challenges, I think the challenges, or the opportunities, I think the skills that are necessary for remote first, they're more accessible in terms of being able to find those expertise wherever they are. So, for example, if an expertise is in Australia, or if an expertise is in British Columbia, and expertise is in Newfoundland, and the mine is in Sudbury, you can sort of tap into those other skills that you otherwise wouldn't be able to tap into. Some of the benefits that I think will come out of those opportunities are things like, enhanced safety is definitely something that's coming with remote first, and things like optimization of operations, and also, there's kind of this end-to-end connectivity, which is now becoming more of an opportunity for mining because of remote first, where you have more understanding of what's happening throughout the entire operation. So I think that's an opportunity that's coming with remote first.
Okay, awesome. So Charles, just to qualify some acronyms you used, one of them you said SME, and for podcast listeners who may not necessarily be part of our mining community or ecosystem, what do you mean by SME specifically?
Oh, excellent. Well, look, first of all, I'll start by saying an SME can be an OEM. So there's one more acronym.
What's an OEM?
That's another one for you. So an SME is a small to medium-sized enterprise, and small is 0 to 99 employees. Medium is 99 to about 500. So small to medium is 0 to 500 employees. Larger companies, obviously 500 plus, can kind of fall into the MNE. That's another term, which is kind of multinational enterprises. But the OEM is really anybody who is an original equipment manufacturer. So you could be a two-person SME and still be called an OEM because you're an original equipment manufacturer. However, in industry, sometimes when people say OEM, they think they're talking about the big companies, when really it just stands for original equipment manufacturer.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Charles. We appreciate that. Now, this question is for anyone who wants to help answer the question and who feels inspired to answer the question. But remote first is about people first, and that's really what remote first is about. So if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing in mining when it comes to connectivity and communication, what is that one thing you would change that you think would make the biggest difference in the world. So if I don't see any volunteers, I'll pick one.
Yeah, I'll volunteer. I'll volunteer.
There you
I
go.
think the ability to be able to have almost like the cell phone experience on surface underground wherever you are would be a big jump for mining. And the reason for that is just because communicating with people at the face, for example, is a big deal, right? So if we can have communication happen anyway instantly, that would be, I think, ultimate for mining.
Yeah, I'd like to expand on that a little bit, and I absolutely agree. And what any user adoption process, the challenge is user adoption always, right? And to bring those collaboration tools like a Microsoft Teams or others to every employee underground in the mine, where they can share videos, share pictures, send quick instant messages to each other. It opens, it brings people to their device. People that didn't have that technology in the past, it brings them to that device as an essential part of their PPE. And then we can add on to it, right? We can deliver all kinds of information, deliver KPIs, deliver statuses of shift to them. But ultimately, we need to get them to the platform, the mobile platform, and these collaboration tools are essential to that. And I think we've seen, many of you have probably seen the video at our kit operations in Timmins, how they've been so successful using Microsoft Teams, and I think that's essential for any underground mining operation to get the devices in the hands of everybody to collaborate.
Awesome.
And if I may add, maybe just one last comment on this. I would say providing the right data to the right people. I mean, of course, I mean, a reliability engineer has to have access to all its operational data. I mean, whether he sits at the mine site or remotely, he has to have access to that data. Process engineer, the same. Environmental specialist. I mean, all those people, they need to have access to the right data and all that data. And that's one of the main challenges that I see.
Awesome. So my next question is basically, what is the most challenging aspect from a technology standpoint as it relates to remote operations?
Yeah, well, I can take that one.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said earlier, I mean now with the cell networks, I mean and all the network the capabilities that are there, LTE, Wi-Fi, mesh networking, things like that. I mean, network communication is no longer a big issue, and now with the cloud, I mean, it's even easier to get access to the data. So the thing that I see that is the most challenging is really to have access to all that data. So we need to bring all the operational data into one placeholder. And when I'm talking about operational data, I'm talking about, for example, pressure, amperage, speed, things like that. I mean, this is information. This is what's happening in real time on the assets. So all that data needs to be captured. This is one thing. It needs to be brought into one placeholder so that anybody can look at that data. But it also needs to be contextualized. For example, if I get a value of 120, what does it mean? Is it a pressure? Is it voltage? Is it a speed? So we need to know what equipment it comes from, what it represents, and things like that. So this is all the context that goes with the data. Because if if I'm working remotely, I need to get access to the data, but also to the whole context of that data. Was the equipment up and running when I got that data? So all of that is part of the context. And this is probably the most challenging aspect that a lot of organizations are kind of are not taking into consideration quickly enough. So because of course you can have access to the data, but you have access to all the context. But again, once you have access to all that data and the context that goes with it, there's a lot of opportunities that it can represent in terms of improvements, as I said earlier.
You make a really good point around data, Martin. I have a question, and maybe Greg or Charles might know something about it. Maybe you probably also do, but I'm more curious about interoperability of data. So I back in the day, like I'm a programmer from the healthcare days, and I did change management in that space, and I 100% agree with you. Giving the right data in the right hands leads to better, safer, more informed decisions. And that's really our definition of change, digital transformation at pace. It's a very simple definition. My question is, do any of you see any efforts in the mining industry around data standardization, where there is a sense of data efforts being put into the interoperability of data. So equipment, putting some standards around the data that equipment is putting out, and then standard nomenclatures and things like that. I don't know if any of you have any experience in hearing about any data standardization activities or something like that when it comes to access to data.
Well,
Yeah.
I do, but I mean, Greg, you want to?
And I mean, there's specific applications for interoperability that are required, right? So one of the key projects that Glencore has and many underground mining companies have right now is collision avoidance systems, and the interoperability of data between equipment around proximity detection and collision avoidance is a key factor for maintenance, for vehicle to sharing information around proximity, location, and so on is key. How they run and from a performance perspective, we're not seeing as much of an opportunity to take advantage of interoperability, but some of these systems that overlay over top that require all the vehicles to interact for safety and productivity, that is important. And from the work we're doing, we see that's happening within the industry, even though we're a bit away from having a collision avoidance system that works in an underground mine as effectively as we need. All the OEMs, there's the OEM thing again, recognize the fact that that connectivity has to happen.
Yeah. So if you had that magic wand and the connectivity was perfect and seamless, then you would have good collision avoidance systems underground and things like that.
I mean, it's an essential aspect of collision avoidance. There's a lot of complexity with that system that needs to get resolved, but we're moving in the right direction at this point.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Greg. Anybody else have something to add? Charles?
Yeah, I can just add that I think, the work that's been done by Heather, talk about International Women's Month and Women in Mining, Heather Edney from GMG Guidelines. I mean, the GMG group is working on things like, standards and guidelines for interoperability. And I think, those efforts are so important. And the reason I say they're so important is that, when an SME, when a company, an innovator, I won't say SME, when the innovator is creating an innovation, they need a place to go to understand what are the standards for that industry and what kind of guidelines should I be following when I'm trying to develop something. So I think entities like that are making a dent. And I think as time moves forward, we're going to see that those standards and guidelines will become more common practice for different operations. It'll make things a lot easier. But I want to also go back to something that that Martin was talking about a little bit earlier on. And I wanted to just say that one of the biggest technical challenges with connectivity and communications is the blind spots. I think being able to eliminate blind spots is so critical, especially in a world that's moving towards fully autonomous mining, right? And one of the best examples to give is that, if you look at on an open pit, for example, and you've got a truck that is hauling ore and it's an autonomous truck, that truck needs connectivity all along the path. But unfortunately, when you look at what's happening in the underground mining environment nowadays, the connectivity is sometimes sparse. So I think one of those challenges is eliminate those blind spots so that you can truly have the connectivity that you need on a full-time basis.
And by blind spots, Charles, you mean the spots where there isn't connectivity.
Exactly.
That's what blind spots of actual connectivity.
Exactly.
That's a good point, because sometimes you learn things the hard way as well. Because one time in one of our implementations, we learned that those blind spots, the disconnecting and connecting of them, would actually Apple iPad at the time only had 60 connections that they could handle. So the iPad stopped working underground, and it was because of those blind spots that you're talking about. So those are things to really keep in mind. Anybody else have anything around interoperability that they want to share right now?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I mean, I'm working with a lot of OEM vendors. I was actually in Sweden again just before in last November, working with large OEM vendors there. And of course, I mean, OEM vendors, they all realize that now they need to share the data. They need to share the data from their assets, but they also would like to have access to the data from mining customers. So we're engaging with lots of OEM vendors. Again, OEM, the OEM word here, but with manufacturing vendors, if I may say, that are manufacturing equipments, parts, and things like that. And basically, the idea is to come up with kind of standard approaches. And for example, the best example I can provide is with Caterpillar, because this is public information I can share. I mean, Caterpillar has launched a product called the Product Link Elite, where they can send trucks data into the operational data platform like the Pi system. And the beauty of it is that they're now providing templates. So they're providing truck templates, standardized truck templates. So any company that has such types of truck, I mean, cat or non-cat trucks, can get a template for their truck, and it's a standard template. So this is something that is getting very popular in with all the OEM vendors. So when we think about crushers, when we think about conveyors, when we think about ball mills, I mean, those are all standard equipment, and we are now getting to having templates, standard templates for mining companies to work with those templates. So again, this is a step that OEM vendors are taking. I mean, not all of them at the same speed, of course, but we are definitely working with all of them, trying to bring that up to speed. And again, like Charles was saying, the GMG group is doing a great job in making sure that the data becomes available to anybody. It's just now a matter of, as a mining company, do I accept sharing my data to my OEM vendor? This is another topic. So
yeah, that's a really good point, Martin. Thank you for bringing that forth. So Charles, I think I have a question for you, because I'm getting a little tired of these blind spots. You know, there's a ton of these blind spots and things like that. And so what's going on in the ecosystem out there? Like, what's going on when we talk about connectivity and communication solutions? Is there anything out there that is promising, on the verge of helping us eliminate these blind spots? Like, I have an imagination. I'll make up a random one. Drones flying with the internet, you know, with the connectivity. So like, you have little drones that just fly, you know, that tag along to make sure that the connectivity is last. So what is going on there?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the most exciting thing I've heard, and you know, some may think this is a pie in the sky idea, but it's real. You know, being able to identify your location underground, exact location underground, is very difficult, because they really technically is nothing really out there like an underground GPS. But there's a company that is looking at the gravity of the Earth and the rotation of the Earth, and using those two variables to sort of pinpoint where you are underground without any external instrumentation, right? So I think things like that will make a huge difference, because I think one of our challenges is, okay, well, where exactly is that piece of equipment underground, and what speed is it traveling at what direction is it going, right? So if technologies like that can come online, you know, I think that would be really, really important to be able to have that. So, and then the other piece that I would say is kind of an emerging thing, is that whole idea of edge computing, right? The idea of the machines to have the level of smarts that are necessary so that they can make decisions by themselves without sort of relying on the external network is also really important. I think, look, we can learn lessons from what NASA is doing. You know, NASA sent a couple of drones out on Mars to do some exploration, some mineral exploration, by the way. And while they're out there, you know, they're using a lot of edge computing and how they make decisions about whether I should go left or should go right, whether I should be digging here or digging there. So I think those kinds of things are sort of emerging in the industry, and I think they'll make a big difference once they are fully fleshed out and fully de-risked, because we must de-risk before we adopt mining.
For sure. So thanks for answering that question, because I know I put you on the spot there, Charles, but that's why I don't give you the questions ahead of time. Otherwise, it's not so much fun to attend all these Q&As. So the other question I have, because you know, our focus is remote first mining, so really taking people out of harm's way, and it could be, you know, on surface, it could be 100 feet away, it could be in a different city, what have you. But my question here is around, you know, how do you mine remotely when you're at site? Like, are companies doing that right now? Anybody know of any of those examples of people mining remotely while they're at site and things like that? I know of a few examples, but I don't know if you guys know of a few examples that you can share.
Well, I can talk about that a little bit, and that's exactly what we're developing out at the Onaping Depth Mine, right? Is remote doesn't necessarily mean you're 1,000 kilometers away from your mine site. I think the ability to deliver information to anybody on site, anybody off site. You know, we have the advantage of being in the Sudbury Basin. There's a great ecosystem of support here, whether it's OEMs and specific technical companies, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to live within this ecosystem. But being able to remind remotely means that we can take advantage of the cloud technology. We can take advantage of worldwide technology. Some of the things that Martin and Charles are talking about, they become accessible to you no matter where you are. So for us, mining remotely at site means that we're removing people from the face. You just talked about that, Neha. Especially at depth, it becomes increasingly difficult to mine safely at the face, and we're working with partners around load wire fire technology to be able to do it robotically to keep people a minimum of 4 meters away from the face. That's a key tenet of our innovation program is to keep people back 4 meters from the face of the mine, unsupported ground. So that's, connectivity and communication is essential for all of these projects, and without it, we just can't do it. And by implementing LTE underground, the private LTE system, it becomes the latency becomes less of a factor. The handover, you talk about the dead zones or the dark spots, the handover of devices and equipment going from one place to the other in the mine it becomes much more manageable. And we need to get to the point where the network is like any other service. We don't mine without electricity, we don't mine without ventilation, and we don't mine without connectivity to the surface, which allows everybody, whether you're underground at the face, whether you're a supervisor on their beat, whether you're management on surface, or whether you're working in a remote location, centralized CCR, to be able to get that information, real-time information back to anybody. And like Martin says, it's got to be the right information. It can't be just blowing people away with all the information that's available. It's got to be specific KPIs, specific statuses for those individuals to be able to make their decisions. And edge computing is a wonderful example of that. Is that how much of the data can we keep at the work location to deliver that information to the worker to make decisions for autonomous vehicles? That, to me, that's a wonderful challenge with the availability of the data. Is how do we use it? How do we deliver it in real time to the people who need to make the correct decisions at the appropriate level? So I think it's for us, mining remotely means that is be able to bring the information to the right people at the mine.
That's awesome. And what I like about what you just said, Greg, is just a point that you hit on, which is, when you think about utilities, it's, water, electricity, but connectivity is a utility of the future that we might not be able to live without. So whoever's coming to bear that seamless connectivity to underground mining operations is really going to be that next mining utility provider. And
Martin gave the example of Boliden, who very successfully implemented a traditional Wi-Fi with access points, but it's a bear to maintain, right? And what we find with LTE, it rolls out very similar to leaky feeder, but you get the ability to have your high bandwidth Wi-Fi connections, wireless connections underground. So that's where it can become like a service, like electricity, like your leaky feeder was in the past for radio communication.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. So I'm just going to put a call out to our audience there, and really appreciate the engagement and you guys taking time out of your day to listen in. If you have any questions, please put them in, because it takes us about 17 seconds to notice the questions. We have Taylor in the background actually calculating the lag between where we are and where we want to be. So that's exactly how long the delay is. So when you see me on LinkedIn Live, I said this 17 seconds ago. So it'll be a minimum of 17 seconds before we get some more questions come up. When we talk about data, I'm a database administrator by trade. So I used to be a programmer, a database administrator, and I'm extremely skeptical when people say, well, we're going to go AI and there's machine learning and there's this and that, because we can't even get like basic data, right? We can't even get data quality up and running. So Charles, do you know about anything about, when AI and machine learning fits into the journey? Or does anybody else know anything about when we talk about mining, and I'm not talking about processing operations. So let's because I know that processing has a certain level of data accuracy that we find. But when we talk about mining, underground mining operations, where's that? Where's AI and machine learning fitting into the journey?
Yeah, I mean, my comment on that would be like, look, mining is a complex system, right? And not only is it a complex system, but it is a system with so many other subsystems. And a long time ago, I had a mining CEO say that running a mining operation is like playing multi-level chess, where there's so much happening all over the place, right? And that it's very difficult for any one person to look. A long time ago, the shift boss could maybe have all the answers because there wasn't the complexity that was there. But nowadays, it's so complex and so many moving parts, so many moving pieces of equipment, so many fans to turn on and off, so many inventories in motion, just so much information, right? So I think, the advent of AI and machine learning is going to allow us to be able to zoom faster to the decision point, right? Because of all these variables that are coming together. So I think the need for AI and machine learning is actually going to accelerate the speed at which we make the decisions that we should, without wasting our time looking at all that non-essential information. Because as it is right now, what is very difficult for the human brain to distinguish which information is relevant or not relevant when you're getting all this information coming in real time. So I think that's where it's coming from. And also the other piece too is that I think what's happening with mining is that we're actually missing out on getting the insights that are necessary to truly optimize operations, simply because we haven't been looking at the data and we haven't been crunching it properly. And I think some of the things that Aviva is doing, and Martin and I were talking a little bit earlier last week, we're just talking about how, the fact that the information is brought to a place, right? And what it needs to be activated, right? It can't just sit there and collect dust. I don't know if information can collect dust, but the data cannot collect dust, but it needs to be activated so that the insights can be drawn out of it. So that's one thing that I'm observing from sort of the ecosystem approach.
We're getting a lot of loves there from the audience, Charles. So you must say something right. So, Martin, do you have any thoughts on that particular topic when it comes to AI and machine learning?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have lots of customers that are leveraging that from an analytics perspective. Again, it's a journey. The analytics journey. I mean, Gartner describes it as a continuous intelligence improvement perspective. Really, I mean, you have to think about it that first, I mean, you have to leverage the knowledge, the expertise that your people have and implement condition-based monitoring, process monitoring, maintenance, condition-based maintenance, condition-based environmental monitoring, all the things that people already know. I mean, we should leverage that. This is the first step. Next step is really to start thinking about using those advanced analytical tools to be able to predict. So predictive analytics, for example, to predict failures, to predict potential process deviations and things like that. So if we take the failure example, well, it's great to predict a failure. Now, how much time do I still have left available? So this is where machine learning will come into play. So it will be able to identify based on previous historical situations, how much time does the system thinks that we still have before the failure happens? And then, of course, the AI platform will be able to help us provide recommendations. So based on historical situations, with such a failure coming in the next 3 weeks, for example, this is what the AI system would recommend. For example, reduce the truck speed so that you are able to extend the life of the truck bearing or whatever, that's going to fail. So I mean, there's a lot of potential use cases when we think about leveraging AI, machine learning, predictive analytics, and all of these. But what I do recommend companies is look at the Gartner recommendations and think about leveraging it step by step. It's important to make sure that we are taking everything that people have in terms of expertise. Like I said earlier, I mean, reliability engineers, there's a lot of information they already know. When I visit companies, I mean, typically reliability engineers, they work with huge Excel spreadsheets and they've identified lots of those conditions. Now, the idea is to bring those conditions into that real-time operational data platform so that it can be monitored automatically in real time. So this is the first step. And then, of course, after that, there are lots of opportunities that are still remaining with predictive analytics, AI, and machine learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. But Greg, I kind of want to touch base with you because when it comes to change management, I'm always preaching to the choir when we talk about it, and I always say, like, if you want to really get good at change management, you should just avoid trying to implement technologies that require human behavior change. Right. So the reason I'm such a skeptic on the AI and machine learning when it comes to the mining operating environment is there's so many technologies that still require human behavior change. And I totally agree with Martin in terms of machine learning. And, when we talk about wear and tear on equipment and things like that, that makes a lot of sense, because if you can get sensors reading that, of course, you could have predictive maintenance and things like that really change the face of the mining operation. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I can give a specific example of beyond the fixed plant, and there's opportunities in the hoist and still the fixed plant within the mines where AI it becomes fairly obvious applications, just like it does in our fixed plants. As many know, Onaping Depth will be a fully electric mine, right? There'll be no diesel equipment below our wind shaft, which means we're running the entire mine with battery electric vehicles for our major hauling trucks, our scoops, and so on. And we need to learn how to run these properly, right? We're going to be working closely with our OEMs and with other partners to understand how the battery performance is, and we need to learn as we go to understand driving behaviors, charging behaviors, how often we need to charge, what kind of situations they're getting into as far as moving uphill, downhill, across ramps, the type of loads that they can carry to be able to be most effective, right? And it goes beyond being productive. It also a massive safety aspect of it, right? To be able to predict failures of batteries and so on. So for us, an immediate need for AI underground is to be able to start analyzing the batteries and understand the right way to run battery electric vehicles underground. And that's just going to be built up along the way. And with, we get back to the connectivity aspect, is we've never had that real-time stream of data coming off equipment before, and we know that we need this real-time stream of battery data to understand that some of it goes directly back to the CCR for analysis of safety, and other it's more of a classic AI approach where we're delivering data to the analytics companies to really try to put a spin on how we can run them most effectively to be most effective in our production mines.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great point. So we're almost at the bottom of the hour, and we do have that 17-second delay to LinkedIn Live, and we had no luck trying to get our video working. So we're gonna try it again, because you only fail if you stop trying. So there's a really interesting video here and it's directly related to what Greg was talking about, and it's about the Onaping Depth project and the work that they're doing there. And I think for our listeners on the podcast and for our viewers, I think understanding this particular case study, it's a 5-minute case study, is really useful to understanding connectivity and communication in a mining operation and the challenges associated with that. So I'm just going to play that in a second right now. And in the meantime, before I get into that video, please put in your questions, as we'll be collecting them and then answering them as we go along. So let's mute ourselves.
Onaping Depth, it's the pioneer project to take the Glencore mining camp to a depth that we've never gone before, down to 2,400 to 2,600 meters underground. We're taking innovation with us. We're embracing it like we've never done before.
We've known about the Onaping Depth ore body for many, many years. It's always been a bit of a challenge for us to make the economic case for that ore body.
We couldn't get it off the ground because the technology wasn't at the forefront to get it off the ground.
Building a new underground mine is a significant undertaking. It takes generally 8 to 10 years. There's a significant outlay of money to build a mine. It's a lot of excavation of rock, just to get to where the ore is.
We're starting with an existing mine, Craig Mine, and then we're traveling another kilometer underground, and then we're starting another mine, the entire mine. We're building from underneath an existing mine.
You know, where we stand today is we're getting ready to go to depth.
It will be hotter, it will be more seismically active, there will be a number of challenges logistically and just practically operating these new mines. And so what we've undertaken to do is simply design out those constraints for ourselves.
Our key clarifying criteria for innovation program is, mine design for depth.
Words designed for depth kind of came from adapting to depth. Can't be, I'll just adapt, learn, I'll gradually. You don't have time.
Design for depth actually means we're anticipating the issues, we're dealing with the issues, we're resolving the issues before they've come up.
Very early on, that project team recognized that they had to commit to battery electric technologies that didn't quite exist for the industry at the time.
My team and I were 100% convinced that battery electric vehicles were going to be able to replace diesels.
With the commitment to battery electric vehicles, it creates a significant reduction in the amount of air that we require underground.
We could make our ventilation plants smaller, our refrigeration plants smaller.
So we need much smaller openings, much smaller fans, which saved us a ton of capital dollars and will greatly reduce our operating costs when the mine is running.
Yet at the same time, creating a healthier work environment for our workers.
And really has been one of the key factors in driving that project forward.
The face is the active part of the mine. It's the farthest part of the tunnel where we're creating new tunnels and going farther, going deeper. The face is definitely one of the more dangerous places in the mine.
With our Safe Deep Development program, we're removing people at least 5 meters from the face. If we're operating these machines, we don't worry about protecting a person because there's no person there.
If we can keep people away from the face of the mine, we keep them safe. Without the digital backbone to deliver wireless communication to the face, it's unachievable. You cannot move people from the face of the mine to surface to run teleremote equipment or to monitor autonomous equipment without that backbone. Autonomous vehicles, teleremote, location tracking, getting telemetry information off your vehicles and heavy equipment, none of that can happen unless you have Wi-Fi throughout your mine. It now opens the door to analysis, real-time data analytics that we've never been able to achieve before. The ability to exploit the connected mine technology by providing wireless coverage to the entire mine allows us to have digital devices in every employee's hands. This will allow that connectivity to collaborate throughout the shift, to share information and feel connected to what's happening and feel the pulse of the mine.
We're learning every day. Every time we make a connection, every time we do a test, we learn a bit more.
Change is always a big factor in implementing technology.
So one of the huge benefits of testing some of the technology is to basically go through the problem, find the learning. What do we need to be successful at implementing that technology? And all that learning can be applied for the success of Unapping Depth project.
Then ultimately, mining the way of the future.
Unapping Depth will certainly be a great leap towards that ultimate vision. We certainly have a grand aspiration of what that mine of the future will look like. In fact, we're building elements of that mine of the future today.
I think like most things in life, those that are hard and challenging are the ones that are most memorable. I think that's what brings a lot of satisfaction to everyone that had a hand to play.
We've always had to be a bit scrappy. It becomes part of the DNA and the culture of who we are. Many of the individuals that end up on projects want to take on tough challenges. They want to be trailbreakers. They want to be pioneers and going to the exciting new places. There's a special group of people that are making that commitment to get us to the next level.
Excellent. That was that video actually played. Sorry to our gold sponsors, Aviva, for the interruption in your video, Martin. So maybe it's just when you started or something like that. Maybe you played a little bit later and you have better luck. I have to admit, I didn't want to play 5 minutes of a video on during a LinkedIn live event, but when I saw it, I thought, well, this makes so much sense. It's really directly related to what we're talking about here. So we do have an audience question here. So I'll just promote the audience question. And the question is, have mining companies begun or considered adopting cloud platforms, cloud computing for storage to help with data storage, AI, data sciences, etc.? What are your thoughts on this? So who wants to take that away? Martin? Oh, sorry, I have you muted. Let me just unmute you.
I'll let Martin go first.
All right, cool.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I mean, I can take it with a good example here. I mean, Norsk Hydro actually in Brazil, I mean, they've presented it lately. They're leveraging the cloud quite extensively. They have 3 mine sites in the north of Brazil. They have their center of or headquarters in the south of Brazil in Rio de Janeiro. And they're actually leveraging cloud technology to make sure that they're collecting real-time operational data from the mine sites through the cloud, bringing it into their headquarters so that their engineers can analyze that. Of course, they're using Azure Analytics from an advanced analytics perspective to analyze all that data and bring some feedback to their operations people. So this is a very good example of leveraging cloud technologies. The other example I can think of is with, I mean, the example I talked about earlier is with Caterpillar, for example. I mean, leveraging trucks data to be able to collect that data, and of course provide predictive maintenance services or prescriptive maintenance services to their customers. So there's a couple of companies that have started leveraging the cloud. Of course, cloud can be a great way to share data with vendors, with OEM vendors, but also for companies to leverage their people's expertise, like the Norsk Hydro example I gave earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to just interrupt the flow because I forgot to mention that the video that we just watched was produced by Sudbury INO in 2020 and 2021. So some of the team members, as the world goes, have changed roles and moved around, just like Greg's been, Greg's moved into his more advanced role, and Glencore, of course, appreciates all of their involvement, but that's just something I wanted to put out there. So sorry I didn't say that when we started the video, everybody. So just wanted to make that note. Greg, tell us a little bit, because this makes me a little scared about cybersecurity. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I'm like, why would I put my data on the cloud just to open it up for someone to hack it? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the key things that all companies who start taking data outside of their firewalls is to ensure that the cybersecurity is a key aspect, right? And whether it's putting your OT firewalls in place, education of our users, all those kind of things are essential aspects. I think it's the responsibility of the IT folk in the room to convince management teams that we need resources for IT security, that we need bodies to be able to maintain processes and so on. And from a cloud perspective, having management systems around cloud adoption and ensuring that the partners you have in the cloud have the same security standards or even higher security standards that you employ in your organization. Just because you're pushing data out to outside of your firewall, you can't assume that they have the same standards of data security, of backup, disaster recovery plans, all those things that you keep that become a high profile within your company. You have to have processes to evaluate your cloud partners, and we have a pretty strict process in Glencore around that. It can be frustrating to our users because it takes time to go through it when they want to. It should be so easy to start using a cloud service provider, and 2 months later we're still working on getting approval to use them. That's just part of it. But the advantages of using cloud services are so overwhelming around the question from George around the compute power and being able to take on the expertise of worldwide resources is clearly is worth it. But don't underestimate the I don't think we want to take for granted that just because you're sending the data out that it's being secured properly, and that's just part of a good cybersecurity process that needs to be in place.
That's awesome. So I think we're at the close. We're at the 59-minute mark. Just wanted to see if anybody had any closing thoughts, any closing comments as we're parting. So I'll start with you, Charles. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess my closing thoughts are really to kind of link back to a presentation I was a part of a couple of weeks ago. And I was on a panel talking about powering mining with advanced computing. And, the advanced computing resources are hardly, present at most mine sites. And the only way to really access advanced computing resources is to access them through the cloud. So I think, if a mining company wants to get the best out of their data, the most of their data, they're going to have to establish a pathway for that data, the right data, not all of it, the right data, to make it to these advanced computing resources where it can be analyzed. So places like SOCEP and Compute Canada are places that are resources that are available for things like that. So I just want to throw it out there. And again, thank you for allowing me to be on the panel, and leave it at that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Charles. Who wants to go next, Martin or Greg?
I can go next. So I guess first of all, thanks again, Neha, for allowing me to be on the panel. I think the takeaway for me is that over the last 2 years, I think it's been very difficult to expand our ecosystems. I think the ecosystems we had heading into the pandemic were maintained as much as we could, but more difficult to maintain them. But they certainly haven't expanded. And just in the conversations, I've learned so much about what Martin is doing, what Charles is doing today, and I think it's just hopefully the start of collaborating again and learning what other mining companies and what other subject matter experts are doing in the industry to help us all move together going forward. So I think I'm hoping this is just the start, and I look forward to getting together for future virtual events and hopefully more in-person events going forward.
Excellent. Martin?
Yep. Well, I mean, I would end with the statement that I did: bring the right data to the right people. I think that's what's really important, to make sure that people have access to the data, but not only the data, but all the context that goes with the data. This is what will help people take the best decision. I mean, I worked with companies that were collecting only data without context, and they were taking bad decisions because of that. So I mean, the whole context that goes with the data is very important. So that's really the main takeaway that I would like everybody to remember is make sure you are leveraging that data, but also the whole context going with the data.
Awesome. That sounds great. And if hopefully you're listening to this on the podcast as well. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you for joining our podcast. Just a quick call to action to join our podcast at listen.bdt.network. And we just wanted to do a shout out to all of the upcoming sponsors and chairs. So I put a little call out on the chat to say, hey, we have a talk coming up April 13th where Greg's hosting the talk. And really, we are missing someone that claims to provide seamless connectivity in an underground networking environment. So if you claim that, we will put you on a panel discussion with Milan Hirsch, who is going to be representing the operational challenges perspective. And of course, here Martin will be there talking about his expertise in creating and integrating that the connectivity and data to get the right data in the right hands to make the right decisions. That's really what digital transformation is about. So just a quick acknowledgement to our sponsors, our patron sponsors, Redpath and Pace.global, and our other stream chairs that are going to be announced on March 22nd. You'll see them actually talk about the various streams. So we have Heather Edney from the Global Mining Guidelines Group, who is co-chairing the Power and Possibilities stream. Of course, there's some, it's about power, so we have to have some women there on not just on Women's Day, but in general. And BBA is sponsoring our development and design stream. So thank you, BBA, for being gold sponsors in that particular stream. And the Center for Smart Mining is working on organizing our methods and machinery stream, which is quite appropriate. So Stephen's participating in that. And Anthony Downs from Valet and Neil Milner representing CIM are hosting the People and Partnership stream. So we're looking for a sponsor for the People and Partnership stream. So if you have a unique People and Partnership solutions, we would love to have you as a sponsor on there. And last but not the least, Samantha Espley is co-chairing the collaboration and community stream. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. And yeah, definitely put in more questions and reach out. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.